Welcome, welcome, welcome back. It is time for the second half of our conference today. Just want to remind everyone to silence your cell phones, and hello to our live streamers and everyone sitting downstairs in the breathing room. We're so excited for everything that's about to come. Again, if you are posting, please tag at the Slow Factory, hashtag Study Hall. And once again, a thank you to our partners, Adidas, Bolt Threads, G-Star Raw, and Selena Chelsea. And again, the after party is from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Selena rooftop, so we will see you all there. And the woman that needs no introduction at all, she's going to come up and introduce our next panel, which I know we're all excited for. Please give a round of applause once again for Celine Seman.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around. Second part. Please help me welcome my panelists. And before I do, let me help me welcome my panelists. Sorry, Robin Bell, Atepa Clearbear, Mary Coppeny, Yara Shahidi, Miss Tina Knowles, Cameron Russell, Bonnie Wright, and that's enough, I think. No, you're the last, all the way to the last, all the way to the last. No, it's okay. So, and I believe we have a video before we start, which is Catherine Hamnet. Catherine Hamnet was a designer that was supposed to be here today, but instead of flying to come here from London, she made us a cute video, so we're going to watch that.
Hi. I've been asked to talk to you about fashion activism and the view of the industry from within and without, how we can change it, how we can make sure there are no more fashion victims, because the fashion victims, or the victims of fashion of the planet itself, are actually life on Earth. In 1989, we did research into the impact of the clothing and textile industry, socially and environmentally, and to my horror and surprise, I found myself was up to my neck in a living nightmare. Everything kills, all raw materials, processes, dyeing, fibers, have horrendous toxic effects on the environment, cashmere, overgrazing, polyester, nylons coming from fossil fuels, PVC, one of the most toxic materials known to man, leather tanning, bleaching, wool, scouring, spinning, but cotton is the worst of all, responsible for tens of thousands of deaths of accidental pesticide poisoning across the developing world, where there's 100 million farmers involved, living in conditions worse than slavery, sometimes on the wrong side of the edge of starvation. They're actually starving, abandoning farming in many cases and becoming refugees and migrants and ending up washed up on the shores of the Mediterranean. Desertification, long-term contamination of the aquifer with pesticides and herbicides which kill and carry on killing. It's an ecocide disaster. 2.5% of world arable land is farmed for cotton, but it uses 10 to 18% of world pesticides. The biggest change that the clothing industry could make would be converting to organic cotton. Farmers farm organically, they can feed, clothe, house their children, educate their families, and afford healthcare. It's not the case right now. They're starving to death and killing the planet at the same time. The other area that fashion should look at is transport energy, which it uses a huge amount of, not just for fashion fairs and conferences like this, but also shipping goods around the world and back, using fossil fuels, putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Hydrogen seems to be the top secret game changer. Huge companies like Toyota are working on this, Mitsubishi, General Motors. You burn hydrogen and it's adaptable for all forms of transport, air, sea, land, and energy generation. It can even work as a battery for renewable energy. All that happens when you burn hydrogen is you give off water. How do you cool the planet? You increase cloud cover. How do you increase cloud cover? You put more water vapor into the atmosphere. So hydrogen is something you should be looking at. Everybody's talking about electric cars. Start asking them now about hydrogen. You can even convert internal combustion engine cars to hydrogen, and you can use it for aviation. And the final trick is legislation which I am preparing to submit to the EU for approval, which says that only goods made outside our economic blocks that are allowed in are made to the same standards outside as the mandatory inside, and that means chemical use, zero hazardous chemical discharge, human rights, realistic living wage, freedom of association, paid overtime, paid holidays, no sexual harassment. It levels the playing field between outsourced and domestically produced, because it raises the cost of outsourced because they've got to pay people properly and they've got to use decent chemicals, and therefore it stimulates jobs within our economic blocks, which is what we need with the employment. We need clothes that are made closer to whether they're consumed. It's more environmental as well. So that's all for the moment. Thank you very much.
So here we are today to discuss culture, but through the lens of educating women and girls. In 2017, a broad coalition of researchers, scientists, business leaders, and policymakers came together for Project Drawdown. This was a multidisciplinary effort to identify the most substantive solutions, not just to halt global warming, but actually cause an annual decline or a drawdown, like the book suggests, in the concentration of greenhouse gases. And through their research, they have found the team looked at dozens of methods of minimizing carbon dioxide emissions, and in the end, they drew a list of 80 immediate and practical measures, along with 20 near-future concepts that can keep carbon dioxide out of the sky. What they did, in other words, was rank the 100 most powerful solutions to reversing global warming. And this was written by Shabana Basij Rasir on TED.com, to introduce the idea that educating women and girls ranks 6 on 100 and will reduce 51.48 gigatons of carbon dioxide. So it ranks 6 on over 100 other solutions, just educating women and girls around the world. And we know that a study of 24 Sub-Saharan countries revealed that when the collection, for example, there takes about 30 minutes for an estimated of 3.36 million children and 13.54 million adult female were responsible for water collection around the world. So we women around the world spend around 200,000 hours collecting water around the world. So what I'm trying to do here is an idea of looking at the issue globally, but how can we act locally? How can we act locally on these issues? And specifically in educating women and girls, empowering women, and putting women in position of power, specifically Black, Brown, Indigenous women in position of power, so that we can reach the global goals in time. And I want to address the first question to Yara Shahidi. Can you reflect on the impact of Yara's Club, the partnership with Young Women's Leadership Network, or YWLN, of New York, who provides online mentorship in hopes to end poverty through education, and also how your work has now evolved to giving platform to the next generation of change makers who are 18 and above.
Well, I'm honored to be here and share space with everybody and to talk about Yara's Club and then 18 by 18. What it really came down to was when I was thinking about my environment, I've been surrounded by powerful women my entire life. And so the norm for me was the assumption that I could be in any position of power or any position that I wanted to be in. Excuse my allergy voice. And I think when I think about the access that I had at home, it really came down to the fact that at a young age, I was in a position in which I knew my opinion mattered. And therefore, I walked into spaces believing it mattered. And not to say that that is the key to ending all infrastructural discrimination that we face, but what Yara's Club was an attempt to do is really, how do we provide and expand that space, to be in conversation with one another, to honestly be able to have an open dialogue, because I do believe that there is an interesting moment, and I know you can can speak to this as well with all of the work that you're doing, in which there is a moment in which you're supposed to turn 18 and have an opinion about the world, but you've never been given the space beforehand to be in conversation.
Absolutely.
And people haven't been in dialogue with you, enough so to help develop your opinion. And so that's the goal of Yara's Club. And then moving into 18 by 18 with the voter work, it was really important to me to focus on voting because it felt as though it was an area in which all of our interests combine. And it was a beautiful moment of unity in which, regardless of what you were passionate about, there was a moment in which we could be in conversation regarding voting and how I move into the voting space, not as a one-platform voter, but keeping in mind the interests of my peers and my community. And so similarly, 18 by 18 has been a beautiful opportunity to be in conversation with so many of my peers, because I think so many people here and in this room can speak to the fact that I don't feel as though young people aren't interested. It's that, do we have access to act on our passions? And trying to use every platform to be able to provide the same resources I've been provided.
Absolutely. And for instance, we can jump to Mary Coppeny, Little Miss Flint. You are known as Little Miss Flint. You are a youth climate activist, and similarly to what Yara was saying, is the idea of being given the opportunity, the agency to take part in the conversation, not wait till you're 18, for example, to have an opinion, but you have made the world understand that there are far more issues that are happening and that are happening here in the United States, because oftentimes in the stories of climate, people want to save the world, they want to go save the world elsewhere, and they don't really necessarily look at what's happening here locally. So the idea of this panel is looking at global issues, but how can we solve them here locally? And I think that you're doing that very well with your initiatives at home. Can you tell us, for instance, how can we support you? How can the industry here that's so curious to help support you? I hear all the time people telling me, what can we do? How can we help? How can we help, in your opinion? What can we do? What can the industry, the fashion industry, for instance, do? For example, just earlier there was Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson on stage, and when she left, she's a climate activist, and she said, I wish I said to the audience that what I need is to have the fashion industry sponsor a scientist, make us look cool, make us, sound cool, make us, for people to understand what we are trying to say, what we're trying to do. And for instance, the fashion industry is looking at science right now in order for us to, this is what the whole purpose of the study hall is about, is, for instance, to include some of the science. Maybe I jump to you, Robin. Robin Bell is a scientist and geophysicist at the Earth Institute. Maybe we warm up a little bit and we'll come back to you, Mary.
This is what we were talking about, right? We were talking about how...
You were? Okay,
yeah,
good,
we were
good.
talking about what really gets us excited is that, right, you were trying to make this beautiful red dress, right, on your phone. And what I was saying is that what gets me excited is when I can show people that I can actually wear my science. And it's, that I showed you my pretty blue and white dress that's like this picture I took of the top of the Greenland ice sheet. And of course, I'm a total geek. This is Antarctica around my neck. And if you really want to see what the layers in the ice sheet looks like, I'll tell you. Because, to me, that's what I think. I think we have to figure out how to make science look cool, right? And beautiful, right? Do you think science is beautiful? Yeah, right? Don't you think, wouldn't it be cool if they could help us figure out how to convey the beauty of science? Right? That's what I wish they could do.
And the challenge of educating women and girls are different in different areas of the world. I want to turn to Miss Tina. Miss Tina Knowles, you have been a mentor, a leader in your community and your space, with 2 amazing daughters as superstars, and using fashion as a medium for social change in the way that you used it. What can you advise this room full of young women to do to become the leaders we definitely need them to be?
Well, I think one of the things that's been important in my life is mentoring. And I mentor a group of girls from 12 to college, actually. And they are from an underserved community. And as Yara was saying, a lot of times the exposure is very limited for these young women. And they have never had a voice, a real voice to a format or a platform to speak. So we try to teach them to have the confidence to speak. And one of the most important things, I think, for sustainability and for women is just camaraderie and finding your support system. I think as women, we face a lot of challenges that men don't have to deal with. I mean, if you're a man and you're celebrated for being hyper-focused and your job being your first priority, but as women, we have to have a support system because that can be kind of taken negatively about women. And I think it's important to teach girls from a very young age to support each other, to pull each other up, not to be competitive, because as girls, we're taught, who's the prettiest, who's the most popular, who gets the guy, and it's just really important to teach them to pull each other up and to support and to mentor and to be mentored. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important to find a great support system for yourself, whether it be family or friends or just your sisterhood. That's just, very, very important.
Definitely. And community, I'm going to jump to Cameron very quickly. You've managed to build the model mafia, and you've really surrounded yourself with a wonderful community. Can you talk to us a little bit about how can women rise into leadership, in your opinion? Because as a model, you've done a lot of work and you've managed to rise into some leadership.
So I'm going to build off of what Ms. Knowles and Yara were saying, that we have to find ways to support, especially young women. And I think one way that we do that is to tell real stories about history and real stories about how change is made. So right now, there's a big push across this country for a Green New Deal. And if we go back to the first New Deal in the 30s, it actually was garment workers organizing in the wake of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, many of whom were young women, who were young immigrant women, who helped push for the labor protections that we still enjoy today. Mm-hmm. And if we go even further back, we can look at the very first union in the United States, and it was started by teenage garment worker girls, again, the Lowell Mill girls. And so if we tell different stories about where power comes from and where change comes from, and like you were saying, it's not about competition, it's about building community and the power we find in community, I think we change the whole narrative and how we see ourselves and how we see where we go from here.
Absolutely, and this is a group that's super eclectic. Like we have scientists, designers, actors. I would like for us all to just take a moment to just chime in as the questions arise. For instance, from the perspective of science, making science cool, making these issues affordable, or not affordable, accessible more likely. Yara, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges you've noticed from the communities around you that you've noticed and you said, okay, I'm going to make a change and I'm going to be empowering using this. I'm going to create collaborations and partnerships with brands to elevate the voices, creating agency?
Well, I feel like where my interest really started at home, being Black and Iranian and being raised to be very proud of my global heritage. My parents intentionally set both my brothers and I in this global community. And so everything I learned about at a young age was from this sense of being a part of a greater community that wasn't divided by the borders that have been set by wars, wasn't divided by these concepts. And so I really start, when I think about what I've been affected by, is there is no separation between I and us. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at what I've been passionate about, it ranges. And I think that's why people who follow me see me talk about so many things, because I see my communities be affected by so many things. I remember that pivotal moment in my life when I realized that climate change was a social justice issue. Mm-hmm. And that was a moment of education for me. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes, whether it's social justice or racial equity, those are starting off points mm-hmm. to realize how much more there is to be passionate about and care about and be concerned about. And there's a moment, I think what captures kind of what I aim to do is the James Baldwin quote, which I love so much, is there's a moment in which you realize that the flag you pledged allegiance to along with everyone else did not pledge allegiance to you. So in the most concise terms, I think the work that I aim to do is figure out what infrastructural change could be made so that we're in a nation that has pledged allegiance to your existence. And I'm grateful to be working with brands. But speaking to the part on partnerships, you're absolutely right. I'm grateful. We're very intentional with who we choose to collaborate with. And what I love about Adidas, not only the fact that I'm fully wearing Adidas, but it comes from an authentic place in which it's one of the only teams in which we've walked in and haven't had to ask about gender balance, haven't had to ask about a sense of racial equity and thinking about even their plans to be a part of this climate conversation. That was something that they brought to the table immediately. And so to be an active partnership and to be able to use platforms with brands that are already thinking proactively, oftentimes it's hard in this corporate culture to be very distracted by what's presented on screen versus what's happening behind the scenes. And so oftentimes we move into these spaces trying to align with brands where their commitment behind the scenes is tenfold what you see out in the world. And I'm grateful that that's what we've been able to achieve so far in this partnership as well.
Absolutely, that's so well said. I guess that now we are forced to do more than just the jobs that we are assigned to do. We're not just models, we're not just actors, we're not just activists, we're not just scientists, we're not just mothers and friends and sisters. We have to extend ourselves so far beyond what we usually we're allowed to do, and so we're asked to take more space. And I want to turn to you, Hatpa, because what you are doing is not just modeling, essentially. It's taking up space, talking about your culture. I want you to comment on that. You're the only man on our panel, but you are an important part of the conversation as well. And so you want to chime in and talk a little bit about how you have taken up some space in your platform and used it as a tool to educate.
Yes, I'd like to start by saying that Indigenous people have always understood the equilibrium of working with the land versus against it. It is a part of our ways of life. We understand that many of us come from matriarchal societies, and the fact that we see the earth as our mother. We are all children of this earth, and I would like to say that the work that I do with the American Indian movement, the Indigenous Alliance movement, a lot of that has to do with decolonization. And what that essentially is, for what I do, is basically informing people on their roots. And a lot of people south of the border, whether they're from Mexico, Central America, South America, they have indigenous roots. And this is important. It has been basically taught to us to hate who we are for hundreds of years. We've been slaves. And I feel now our people are starting to reclaim and understand where they come from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Going back to the power that we have as individuals, as fashion also has the power to change culture. I want us all to chime in. Also, Bonnie, Mistina, the way, and Yara, of course, Mary, the way that we use fashion has tools that are beyond just getting dressed, right? Like, you understand that so well. Can you chime in a little bit to tell us this powerful industry cannot stay silent in the face of everything that we're trying to change, cannot just do business as usual. We cannot any longer just pretend we didn't hear it, we didn't see it. How can we influence, inspire the fashion industry to really embrace what we're talking about here, not just give us some, some space for a minute or two, or how can we, you from your experience in mentoring women, I'm asking you as a young mom, what can we do?
Well, what I have done personally is just discovered people from all ethnicities and all parts of the country in terms of fabric making and clothing. The suit that I have on now is from a designer from Ghana. So that's the best way we can support, is celebrate all of the different cultures and all the different aspects of people's being, and get it out there to the masses, and not be so tunnel vision about, just be open to different things in different parts of the country, and not just stay stuck in this one lane where everything has to be ultra sophisticated in our eyes, but to just be open to different cultures and the beauty of different countries and different foods and different music. Just to be open, I think that's the important thing. And I have seen it in fashion, but you're very right that there will be one season of something and it'll be the hot thing, and then the next year is the flavor of the month. And fashion is ever changing, but I just think that we're open to it for that one season. And after that's gone, it's like we're back to the norm. And it's a hard space, fashion is, for minorities to enter and to be respected. And I think that if we as consumers were more open to differences, then I think it would make a big impact on the world.
Absolutely. I think that the way that we have discussed throughout the summit, the core idea was we have to change culture. We have to be able to change culture in order for us to see change. As we've heard previously also in the first panel from Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who said policy follows culture. Laws follow culture. And in fashion, how can we inspire it to change through the culture is essentially the idea that we're trying to explore. And again, I would look at you, Cameron, and then I'll jump in to you, Yara, just to chime in on like, how can we use fashion as a culture, really, to influence that change?
I have to say, I think however you raised your children is what I hope that my children get to do, which is be able to envision and embody and build for themselves an alternative, and hopefully to share that with others. And so that is the cultural change that we need. And I think as culture makers, we get to perform the change before the deep, challenging work. We get to do it first. And that is a privilege and also an enormous responsibility. And so I think in fashion, that's where we have to go. We have to actually find the front line near us. And we have to push, and we have to work as hard as people on other front lines are doing right now.
Absolutely. I want to turn to Yara very quickly to chime in also on the idea that for change to happen, for policies to change, culture has to change. And, we can use music, we can use fashion, we can use the social media, everything. And it's part of education. This is part of educating as well. It's the idea also of educating women and girls to empower themselves and to take more space. Do you want to chime in on that? It's not really a question, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think to reiterate what's already been said, it's important to not only have a support network, but to be okay doing the infrastructural work and doing the work that is about how do we change behind the scenes. And I believe that culture is something that has to happen cross-industry, and so part of the fashion movement is how do we work with industries, how do we use all of this as a tool for education. I mean, even Bonnie, your role as a director, I think, speaks to the importance of media as an educational device, as an opportunity to introduce people to new concepts, and I think fashion being something that is accessible as an opportunity to do something similar.
Yeah, definitely, thank you. No, for me, I think with all things, either you're leaders, as we're talking now, you embody that and it feels right in yourself to be one, or sometimes you would prefer to be part of a whole and sort of attach yourself to a group and a movement. And to me, that's been part of my journey of stepping behind the camera from acting to directing, is I realized that was more fitting to how I like to tell my stories and where my strengths lied. So I think I really bring that into the same kind of way as understanding education and culture, is really realizing just because you're inspired by a leader doesn't mean you necessarily need to be that leader. So I think it's really important to just personally, after today, digest everything that's happened and you've heard, and just feel what feels right for you, and it's not necessarily what was being set up on stage or in that embodiment of that person. And I think it's really important to sort of make it work for you with culture as well as the whole.
Absolutely. The idea of this panel was it's called Message from the Earth, and the way I imagined it was that we can all say our message, every one of us, and I will ask like that we go one by one, to speak out our message to the earth, the industry. Here we have like the fashion industry, we have press, we have different sectors of the industry, we have the Earth Institute, we have several of our partners from, the UN to other sectors, other partners, small and large. And if we could address this industry, and again, we have people watching live, what would we say? And would you want to start?
Yes.
Hatpa? And then we'll go one after the other.
What I have to say is, it's just very simple. I just want to say, honor the earth. That's it. Take care of the land.
For me, I guess my message would be just to, it sounds kind of corny, but just love and support each other, because at the end of the day, it's not this huge difference that we make life. It's not that different from one person to the next. And to also not to, I think, one of the things I wanted to say in this, and I'm always careful about what I say because it can be taken wrongly, but in the fashion industry, I think it's been, when I look at African culture or African American culture, I feel like you cannot turn the TV on, you cannot see an ad without seeing African Americans. But sometimes it's a selective process, and even though we influence the culture so much, and all the good parts, people want to pick and choose what they do, and it's hard for us to be at the top of the realm to be able to affect the change that we want to affect, and for people to just be more open to everybody,
I think my message is a little bit geekier because.
But that's what we want. That's what we want, Robin.
Because that's my job.
Yes,
that's my passion.
Do it.
So my message is that we're really lucky as a species that we can see how this planet works. 100 years we didn't know continents moved and we couldn't predict things, and so we're in a really special place because we know how the planet works. And with that knowledge comes responsibility. So I think it's time for us all industries and all communities, to assume that responsibility. And back to your message, is honor the earth and use our knowledge to ensure that it stays a place that we all want to live on, and so we can laugh and have fun, right? So I think that is my message.
Can
you restate the question?
The question is, what would be your message to the earth or to the industry or to the people? Or you say it so well on social media. Imagine you're just with me.
You got it. Just talk about your...
Just tell us your message for the earth. Speak from your heart. Speak from your heart.
What about your year? Tell your story.
Yeah.
How did you get started with this?
I got started when I was 8 years old. So I was just in third grade. Yeah, third grade. And that's when I had that's when I wrote the letter to President Obama. You guys know about that, right? Yeah.
Everybody.
Well,
Tell the story. People like to hear it. People like to hear it. It's special.
well, if some of you don't know, I'm the little girl who wrote that letter to President Obama, asking him to come to Flint and raise up people's spirits, since the water crisis was really bad during that time, and people were getting really sad since they couldn't do what they loved to do. So they couldn't cook with the tap water, they couldn't drink with the tap water, they couldn't even shower or take a bubble bath. and like some of the kids couldn't even make Kool-Aid because of how bad the water was. So then like we all had to use bottled water. So I just asked them like, kitty, like kind of come to Flint, you know, like just raise everybody's spirit so then nobody won't feel really sad during it. And a couple months after, a couple months in, I was still in second grade. No, third grade. Yeah, third grade. My bad. Third grade. And I was just chilling inside my third grade classroom doing my math work, trying to get my grade, when all of a sudden I see my mother walk in, and I was like, oh, she's probably here to check up on me or, you know, just pick me up because, you know, I like getting picked up from school because, you know, yeah. But no, all I see is her with a whole bunch of camera people behind her. And I'm like confused because like, what did I do? I was like, and then she comes over to me with all the camera people, pulls out her phone and starts reading the letter that I wrote. And then she starts reading that, you know, President wants to come to Flint, but not only come to Flint, but me. And you know, me being the third grader that I was, me getting all happy, jumpy, and excited. And then all my friends was like, all my friends are like, wow. Then yeah, that happened. And then, yeah.
What's it like in Flint now?
There's a water crisis in Newark too.
Yeah. I mean, there's bad water everywhere, but I just want to say that America has a water crisis, and the government isn't really doing anything to fix it because they're too busy on, you know, the government isn't too worried about fixing America's water crisis because, you know, they don't believe in fixing the problems that the people want. They believe in fixing what the president wants. And yeah.
Yeah, right. Your message to the earth, the message to the industry, the message to the world.
Well, I have to restate something that the activist Future, Janaya Khan, on Instagram or Twitter had said that really spoke to me was, it's really important in whatever room to remember who are we if not each other. And the way that she stated it was that, the way that they stated it was that you must bring people other than yourself into a room, because if you only advocate for yourself, then all you're asking is for colonial infrastructures to work in your favor. And so I think it really comes down to that idea of, are we reshifting, are we shifting, or are we disassembling? And I am inspired to be in a room of disassemblers.
Yes. Cameron.
Well, I'm going to speak to the fashion industry because I got a lot to say to y'all. And I'm going to break it down. So fashion is, like most highly extractive industries, the responsibility of harm done belongs to a few people. And when I try to have empathy for those few people on top, I think you must just be ignorant. You must just sit and not know what to do next. And I can appreciate that, and I can feel for you in that. And I also would tell you that there are so many people who know, including children who are brilliant, like Mari. There are so many people who know. So find some humility, find some speechlessness. Find the people who have been doing sustainable fashion and sustainable lifestyle for not decades, but centuries, and bring them in and disperse your power and money as fast as you can, because we have 10 years.
Bonnie, it's not an easy task, huh? You're the last.
Yeah, my message to the earth would be that I guess I'm first here to listen and to learn and to hope I never stop learning. And that I hope that my curiosity will help me, lead me to the best action possible in each scenario, and know that that action, when listening, will change tomorrow or the next day. So it's just a constant being in that flow, I guess, and I'm here to do it with everyone, as we are, you know, speaking. My message to Earth is to each other, because we're of it.
Thank you. And now we're going to have Hatpa, would you sing? Yes, Hatpa is going to tell us what you're going to do because I'm not going to do it justice.
I'm going to sing a song. It was given to me by my elder, Tony Gonzalez, of the American Indian Movement West. And this song is called the AIM Song, or the Unity Song. So I'm just going to sing that right now. Yeah, okay. We yo hey ha, we hey ya hey ha, ya we hey ya we ha, ya we hey ya we ha, ya we hey ya ho hey yo hey ya hey yo. We yo hey ha, we hey ya we ha, ya we hey ya we ha, ya we hey ya we ha. Yahweh, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ya, hey, yo. We, ha, we, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ya, hey, yo. We, yo, hey, ha, we, hey, ya, hey, ha. Yahweh, hey, ya, hey, ha. Yahweh, hey, ya, hey, ha. Yahweh, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ya, hey, yo. We yo hey ha, we hey ya hey ha, Yahweh hey ya hey ha, Yahweh hey ya hey ha, Yahweh hey ya hey yo hey ya hey yo. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. We are over time. We have to leave, but thank you so much for being here. Have some water, babe. Have some water. Leave your mic on.